I only came in for a haircut, but the way she touched my hair, looked at me, and whispered you'll leave looking dangerous, that was the moment everything between us stopped being simple. I walked into the salon expecting nothing more than a trim, something quick, something routine. But the moment the door closed behind me, the world shifted a little. The place was softly lit, warm in a way that made the afternoon feel quieter than it actually was. The faint hum of jazz played from hidden speakers, and the air smelled faintly of cedar and something floral. Then she stepped out from behind the counter. She looked like she'd walked straight out of a moment I wasn't prepared for. Early 40s, confident posture, eyes sharp enough to read intentions I hadn't even formed yet. Her hair was pinned loosely, allowing a few strands to fall in elegant arcs around her face. And then there was her smile, or rather that smirk. A slow, deliberate curve at the corner of her mouth that said she saw right through me before I said a single word. "You must be my 3 o'clock," she said, voice warm, low, and with a teasing note she didn't bother hiding. I nodded, suddenly aware of how young I sounded compared to her calm, practiced tone. She motioned me to her chair with a small flick of her hand, bracelets chiming softly as she moved. The chair felt bigger than usual. Or maybe I just felt smaller under her gaze. As she fastened the black cape around my neck, her fingers brushed my skin, light, practiced, but unexpectedly warm. It was nothing. It was everything. A simple gesture, but the air tightened just enough for me to notice. "So," she said, standing close enough that I could smell her perfume, soft, mature, the kind that settles rather than demands attention. "What are we doing today?" I tried to sound casual as I explained the haircut, but she wasn't really asking about style. She was listening to the tone of my voice, studying me in the mirror, as if decoding something. Every few moments she'd meet my eyes through the glass, briefly, but long enough for me to feel it in my chest. Her hands moved with precision, guiding my head gently. When she spread her fingers along the back of my neck to tilt my chin upward, the warmth of her touch lingered. Not in a bold way, just longer than professional necessity. "You seem tense," she said, almost amused. "Just not used to being inspected this closely," I replied, trying to laugh it off. "Oh, I'm not inspecting," she said, stepping slightly closer, her smirk returning. "I'm assessing." Her words shouldn't have hit as hard as they did, but there was something about her tone, playful, yes, but strangely comforting too. As if she could see past my defenses and wasn't bothered by what she found there. The snip of scissors filled the space between us, but her presence overshadowed everything else. The warmth of her fingertips against my temples, the steady rhythm of her breathing near my shoulder, the faint rustle of her clothing whenever she circled behind me, it all felt more personal than a first appointment should. And yet, I didn't want it to end. By the time she brushed away the last stray hairs with a slow sweep of her palm across my shoulder, her touch felt familiar in a way I couldn't explain. Key emotion, curiosity mixed with an unfamiliar pull toward her, something subtle, quiet, but impossible to ignore. The longer I sat in her chair, the more the rest of the world faded into the background. The salon wasn't fully empty. There was music, the soft hum of the air conditioner, the distant sound of traffic outside. But somehow everything softened around her. She had a way of moving that quieted whatever noise existed. A steadiness. A subtle confidence. An energy that made you lower your guard without ever feeling pressured to. She combed through my hair with slow, deliberate motions, her fingertips grazing my scalp every few seconds. It wasn't intimate in any inappropriate sense, but it was comforting, deeply so. The kind of comfort that sneaks up on you before you recognize how much you've missed it. "So," she said lightly, her voice floating above me like warm water, "what's been on your mind lately?" It was an innocent question, something a stylist could easily ask any client. But with her, it didn't feel like polite small talk. Her tone was too gentle, too patient. And when she leaned slightly over my shoulder to see the way my hair fell, I caught her gaze in the mirror. It wasn't casual. It wasn't distracted. It was focused, on me, on my words, on the truth I hadn't even spoken yet. Before I realized it, I was talking more than I intended. About finishing school. About feeling like I wasn't moving fast enough in life. About the quiet pressure of trying to prove myself without knowing exactly who I needed to prove anything to. Normally, I kept those parts of myself hidden, or shared them only with people who'd asked too many times to ignore. But she listened like someone who understood the things people don't say out loud. She murmured softly as she trimmed a bit more around my temples. Sounds like you've been carrying more than you admit. Her voice wasn't pitying. It wasn't overly warm. It was simply real. A tone that suggested she'd carried her own burdens before, and maybe was still carrying some. When she angled my chin upward with 2 fingers, gentle pressure, light enough to ask permission without needing to say a word, my breath caught for half a second. Not because of the closeness, but because of how natural it felt. As if we weren't strangers anymore. As if the chair between us had become a quiet refuge. Don't be so hard on yourself, she said. You've got time. And you've got potential. I can see that already. Just from a haircut? I tried to joke, though my voice came out softer than expected. She smiled, small, warm, knowing. From how you talk. How you think. People reveal themselves more than they realize when they feel safe. Safe. The word stayed with me. Because that was exactly how she made me feel, unexpectedly, disarmingly safe. Her hand brushed the side of my neck again as she smoothed out a section of hair. The pads of her fingers left a warm trail behind, subtle but grounding. The kind of touch that didn't demand attention but still shifted something inside you. Every moment stretched, unhurried. Every glance in the mirror felt like a conversation in itself. By the time she stepped back to assess her work, I realized I had told her more in 20 minutes than I'd told people I'd known for years. Key emotion, growing emotional safety and intrigue. 2 people drifting quietly from strangers to something gentler, deeper, and far less expected. I told myself I wasn't going back so soon. A week was too early. My hair didn't need anything yet. But the pull wasn't about the haircut. It was about the way the salon had felt when she was there. About her voice. Her presence. Her quiet steadiness that lingered in my mind longer than it should have. So I walked in just as the day was ending. The front door chimed softly, and she looked up from sweeping hair into a corner. Her sleeves were rolled to her elbows, her hair tied back in a loose ponytail that let a few strands fall against her cheek. She wasn't the perfectly put-together stylist I'd seen days ago. She looked more real, more relaxed, more her. She raised an eyebrow when she saw me, the corners of her lips tugging into a half-smirk. You again? Either your hair grows impossibly fast or you just missed me. I opened my mouth, but nothing clever came out, just a quiet laugh. Maybe both. She leaned the broom against the wall, putting a hand on her hip. I'm about to close up. But, she paused, eyeing me with a softness she pretended not to have. You can stay if you want. I don't mind the company. The way she said it, unforced, gentle, made my chest feel warm in a way I couldn't explain. She locked the front door as I settled into her chair, though she didn't drape the cape over me. She wasn't preparing for a haircut. She was simply choosing to sit with me. The salon in the evening felt completely different. The overhead lights were dimmed, leaving warm pools of gold across the floor. The soft background music seemed slower, more intimate. Outside, the world blurred into dusk. She gathered her tools absent-mindedly, but her attention was on me. So, she said, leaning against the counter, what brings you here besides the non-existent split ends? I shrugged, feeling unexpectedly shy. Just wanted to talk. She nodded slowly, as if she'd been hoping I'd say that. Me too. The conversation didn't start deep. It wandered from favorite movies to disastrous teenage haircuts to old memories that made her laugh quietly. But slowly, almost unknowingly, it shifted into something more vulnerable. She told me about the exhaustion that comes with being good at taking care of everyone but yourself. About the pressure in her industry to always look perfect, always appear younger, always pretend she didn't notice people watching her more than they listened to her. Her voice softened as she spoke, not fragile but honest. raw in a way that made me sit forward. I get scared sometimes, she admitted. That one day I'll wake up and the world will see me as past my prime. I didn't know what to say at first. She looked so confident, so self-assured. Seeing this quieter side of her, this rare crack in the armor, made her feel even more real. You don't come across that way at all, I said gently. If anything, you seem like someone who's getting better with time. She blinked, caught off guard by the sincerity. Her smile was small, grateful, and a little sad. She stepped closer, brushing back a strand of hair that had fallen over my eye. Her fingers grazed my forehead lightly, just a touch, but full of meaning. You're good at saying things people don't expect, she whispered. For a moment neither of us moved. Her hand lingered just above my cheek. The dim lights wrapped around her like soft gold. The quiet between us felt warm, not awkward. Natural. Two people, no longer strangers, sharing an hour either of us had planned for. Key emotion, a subtle, deepening attachment built through unguarded moments, and the beginnings of emotional vulnerability between them. I didn't expect to see her outside the salon that evening. I had only walked past because it was on my way home, and part of me hoped, quietly, foolishly, that I might catch a glimpse of her inside, even if she didn't see me. But the salon lights were off. The sign flipped to closed. The street was washed in a soft, rainy glow, the kind that blurs every color and sound. Then I noticed her car. Parked beneath a flickering street lamp. Engine off. Wipers frozen mid-streak. Inside she sat perfectly still, her head slightly bowed, hands loosely holding the steering wheel. I didn't realize she was crying until I got closer. It wasn't dramatic, no shaking shoulders or messy sobs. Just small, quiet tears she wiped away quickly, like she didn't want even the night to witness them. I hesitated. My first instinct was to turn around, to give her privacy. But something in my chest tightened. I couldn't leave her like that. So I walked up and gently tapped the window. She startled, not at my presence, but at being seen in a moment she tried so hard to hide. She rolled the window down only halfway, as if giving me access to her world in cautious increments. Oh, she said, forcing a quick smile. Hey. Didn't expect to see you. Her voice tried to sound light, but the rawness in it was unmistakable. Are you okay? I asked softly. She drew in a breath, steadying herself. Yeah. Just, long day. The way she said long held the weight of something deeper. Can I sit? I nodded toward the passenger side. For a moment she hesitated. Then she unlocked the door. When I slid in, the scent of her perfume, faint, familiar, comforting, wrapped around me. The rain tapped softly against the roof, creating a cocoon of sound that made the car feel strangely safe, hidden from the world. She wiped under her eyes quickly, embarrassed. Sorry you had to see me like this. I'm usually better at keeping it together. You don't have to hide anything from me, I said gently. That was all it took. She let out a long breath, the kind someone releases only after holding everything in for far too long. One of my clients, someone I've known for years, told me today that I was trying too hard to act young. That I should just accept that I'm past the age for bold styles or confidence. She let out a small, shaky laugh. Imagine that. Being criticized for showing a little life. Her voice cracked on the last word. I felt something warm and protective rise in my chest. That's ridiculous. Confidence isn't a crime. And if anything, it suits you more than anyone I know. She stared at her hands, her thumb tracing slow circles over her palm, an unconscious gesture of trying to steady herself. You're kind, she murmured. Kinder than I expected someone your age to be. A soft silence unfolded between us. Then she reached for my hand, not in a dramatic or romantic way, but in a quiet, instinctive search for reassurance. Her fingers slipped against mine, warm, slightly trembling. She squeezed once, as if grounding herself through the contact. The touch wasn't long. It wasn't bold. But it was honest. Outside, the rain softened to a drizzle. Inside, the air between us felt warmer, gentler, threaded with something unspoken but undeniably growing. Key emotion. Their bond deepens as vulnerability shifts from accidental to intentional. Something shared, something trusted, something neither of them wants to pull away from. I didn't plan on asking her. I must have rewritten the message 5 times before finally sending it. I have an event coming up, would you mind styling me for it? She replied almost immediately, something she rarely did. Come in early. Before the rush. I'll take care of you. The morning of the appointment, I arrived a few minutes before opening. The salon lights were still off, but she was inside, adjusting products on a shelf. When she saw me through the glass, her expression softened in a way that felt personal, warmer than professionalism, quieter than excitement. She unlocked the door, leaning against it with a small smile. You're early. You said to come before the rush? Not this early, she teased, stepping aside. But I don't mind. Inside, the salon felt different at that hour. Still. Calm. Almost intimate. Just the two of us in a place usually buzzing with people. She moved around the room with purpose but also with an undercurrent of nervous energy she tried, and failed, to hide. You look tense, I said lightly. She paused mid-reach. I'm not tense. Your shoulders disagree. She rolled her eyes, but she also relaxed them. Fine. Maybe I am. A little. She draped the styling cape over me, but her movements were slower than usual, more deliberate. As she fixed the collar, her fingers brushed the back of my neck, a soft, warm touch that sent a ripple of awareness through both of us. She felt it too. I saw the subtle pause in her breath before she continued. What kind of event is this? She asked, standing behind me as she ran her fingers through my hair. Her reflection hovered above mine in the mirror, close, comforting. It's nothing big. Just a professional thing. But I want to look like I belong there. She stopped, hands resting lightly on my shoulders. You do belong. You just need someone to bring it out. She said it quietly, almost tenderly. Her styling was different this time. Slower. More focused. Every time she moved around the chair, the faint brush of her arm or the whisper of her sleeve against my skin felt charged with something unspoken. Her perfume, warm, subtle, familiar, wrapped around me in waves. At one point, she stepped close to adjust my collar. She smoothed it down carefully, her hands gliding over the fabric, then lingering at the base of my throat. Her breath ghosted near my ear when she murmured, Hold still. I forgot how to breathe for a moment. When our eyes met in the mirror, either of us looked away immediately. There was a softness in her gaze, mixed with something she wasn't ready to name. Her cheeks carried a faint flush she didn't quite hide. She cleared her throat and stepped back, pretending to inspect her work. You clean up nicely, she said. You're the reason. This time, she looked away first. By the time she finished, the tension between us wasn't sharp or frantic. It was quiet, warm, and undeniable. Not rushed. Not inappropriate. Just real. Key emotion, a soft, growing awareness between them, mutual attraction expressed through careful touches, lingering glances, an unspoken vulnerability either dares to fully acknowledge yet. She took a long step back once she finished styling me, crossing her arms lightly as if creating a small barrier between what she felt and what she wanted to show. But her eyes didn't know how to hide anything. They traveled slowly from my hair to my collar, down to the way the suit jacket sat across my shoulders. There was something almost vulnerable in the way she studied me, like she was afraid to say what she was thinking, but even more afraid not to. I shifted slightly under her gaze, unsure what expression I was supposed to wear. Well? I asked quietly. Do I look okay? Her lips parted, but she didn't speak right away. The silence stretched, gentle, charged, impossible to ignore. She walked around me again, fingertips lightly grazing the edge of my collar as if making a final adjustment, though nothing needed fixing. Her touch was soft, warm, practiced, but it carried a tremor I hadn't felt from her before. Finally, she exhaled in a slow, steadying breath. Her voice was barely above a whisper. "You'll leave looking dangerous." The words hung between us, bold, unexpected, intimate in a way either of us planned. I watched her face as she realized what she'd said. Her eyes widened just slightly, then she looked away, brushing her hair behind her ear even though it didn't need fixing. Her confident demeanor slipped for the briefest moment. Not because she regretted the words, but because she had finally let something slip that she'd been holding back. "I mean," she began quickly, stumbling over her own composure. "I meant you look sharp. Put together. Confident. That's all." But that wasn't all. She knew it. I knew it. The whole room seemed to know it. I stepped closer, not too close, just enough to bridge the space she'd created. Enough to show her I wasn't running from what she'd revealed. "Dangerous?" I echoed softly. "For who?" She looked up at me, and for a moment, all her practiced calm faded. There was warmth in her eyes, but also hesitation, like she was standing at the edge of something she wasn't sure she should reach for. "For anyone who looks too long," she murmured. She tried to smile through the embarrassment, but the truth beneath her words trembled. She reached out instinctively, as if to fix the sleeve of my jacket, but her hand stilled halfway. Her fingers hovered in the space between us before dropping gently to her side. Before she could retreat completely, I reached out and took her hand, slowly, giving her every opportunity to pull away. She didn't. Her fingers curled softly around mine, warm and steady, as if the touch grounded her. The salon felt impossibly quiet. The low music seemed miles away. All I could hear was her breath, and how it synced with mine in a rhythm neither of us meant to create. "You don't have to take it back," I said softly. She blinked, surprised. "Take what back?" "The truth in what you said." A faint smile touched her lips, shy, accepting, a little stunned. She squeezed my hand gently, her thumb brushing once over my skin, a small gesture that carried more honesty than anything she could have spoken. For the first time, she didn't hide the way she looked at me. There was admiration, longing, and a fear that came from wanting something she wasn't sure she was allowed to want. Key emotion, the turning point, where attraction stops being subtle and silently acknowledged, and becomes something they both feel and can no longer deny, held in a quiet, tender moment of mutual vulnerability. The salon was almost silent now, lights dimmed, chairs empty, the air carrying the faint warmth of blow-dryers that had finally cooled. Outside, the city buzzed in distant waves, but inside, everything felt suspended, as if time had slowly backed away and left the two of you alone. She clicked off the last light over her station and turned toward you, her silhouette outlined by the soft glow from the street lamps leaking through the window. Her voice was low, almost shy, yet somehow bold enough to cut through the stillness. "There's one last thing I want to check," she murmured. You didn't know what she meant until she stepped closer, closer than she had all evening, even closer than when her fingers had been in your hair. Her eyes lifted to yours, studying them like there was a question she'd been waiting hours to ask. Her hand rose, slow and deliberate, and she brushed a stray lock of hair off your forehead. It wasn't professional. It wasn't casual. It wasn't a stylist finishing her work. It was something else. Something forbidden. And she knew it. Her breath caught, barely audible, but you felt it. The space between you tightened, almost snapping under its own intensity. Her fingertip lingered a second too long. Her eyes searched yours again, as if asking for permission she wasn't supposed to want. "Dangerous," she whispered, echoing her line from earlier, but this time, her voice shook. Not from fear. From desire she'd been trying to bury. You swallowed, your pulse kicking up. "You said I'd leave looking dangerous," you said softly. She smirked, broken, hesitant, but still her. "I didn't expect you to look dangerous to me." For a moment neither of you moved. You could hear the faint hum of a sign outside, the ticking of a wall clock, the soft hitch of her breath. Then she stepped closer again, so close her knee brushed yours. She wasn't pretending anymore. She wasn't hiding behind professionalism or witty lines. She was crossing a line. Her hand slid down to your jaw, her thumb tracing the edge of your chin with slow, unsteady confidence. It was the kind of touch that didn't belong in a salon. It belonged in secrets, in late-night confessions, in places where consequences didn't exist. Your voice lowered. You sure about this? Her eyes flickered, fear, excitement, surrender, all tangled together. No, she admitted. But I want it anyway. She leaned in, not fully, not yet, but close enough that the intention was undeniable. The moment stretched, pulsed, wrapped the room in heat. She was inches from crossing the final line, the one that would change everything. Then she whispered, barely audible, "Tell me to stop, or I won't." And you realized, she wasn't the only one who didn't want to.